Hi, have you got a disrespectful and condescending stepchild and you don't know what to do? I post once a week, so subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell and I'll let you know every time I post. What does one do with a stepchild who is maybe sort of preteen, early adolescent, who continues to make condescending remarks about the step-parent, even though, the parent doesn't approve of those remarks and has said so? Why does this stepchild continue to feel as though they can be like this? It's quite a complex problem, this, and it's not that uncommon. So what is it and what can you do? There are a few strands to this issue, so I will deal with each strand separately, and depending on what the root cause of the problem is with this stepchild, then that will depend on which strand you need to explore. The first strand is the upper, the visible, the behaviour strand, which begs the question, so what happens when you have a stepchild who makes remarks which aren't acceptable about the step-parent? What happens? Now, if the parent doesn't support that, and you don't support that as the step-parent, obviously, what or how is that child being allowed to continue to be condescending? What happens when the child is condescending? What happens in the instant? Are they being allowed to get away with it? I mean, one of the things that one can do is look at behaviour modification methods and get the child to have a consequence as a result of a rude, condescending remark or poor behaviour or whatever it is. It's very much on the surface. This happens, the child chooses to do this, and there's a consequence. It can sometimes be that you don't approve of the comment, it's not allowed, the parent doesn't allow it either, but nothing happens, so they get away with it. And this then can become a bit habitual, and they put their toe in the water a bit, and then they put a bit more in, and then they'll do it again and again. And if nothing ever happens as a result, then they don't see there's any need to stop. So those kind of behavioural sort of things, like the behaviour equals a consequence, could possibly help you sort this out. I would suggest, because it's a step-parent, step-child situation, is that you don't confront it for the first time there and then when the child makes a condescending remark, but leave it until you can calmly, maybe the next day or later that day, and have a moment with the child, more than a moment, a period of time where there is no end. So not like as though in 20 minutes you have to be somewhere. That you have a bit of time to talk to the child, and then collectively, you and your partner talk to the child together, or you talk to your partner and you talk to the child, or you talk to your partner and your partner talks to the child. And ask the child, we noticed you did this. Is there a reason for that? What's the problem? Why is that? Why are you doing this? We're going to put into place a system now, which means that if you do that again, this will happen. And then, once you've done that and you're confident that the young person has understood what that means and what the consequence will be, then you wait for the next time. And if it happens again, I would recommend that the consequence doesn't happen that first time, but you choose to take the child aside at a different time, again waiting for a bit, and say, so we went through this a couple of days ago, or the last time you came to stay, and we thought you were clear that you would know that the consequence would be this. Can we just ask you why you did it again? Because we don't want to give you the consequence, but next time it's going to happen. And then obviously listen to what the young person has to say, and then off you go again. And if it happens again, in any guise, the consequence happens. Now, a little note on consequences. Consequences don't need to be much, especially in step families, because big punishments are too severe for the relationship to manage it, really. So the best thing is to just arrange a very small consequence. Now, I don't know what a small consequence would be, but it would need to be something that you can deliver without their permission. So getting them to give up their phone or not look at the internet so much, have less internet time, or is very difficult for you to manage. So it needs to be something simple like, we're not going to give you a lift to the shops this weekend, or you can do your own such and such, and if it doesn't matter that if it isn't done, or we're not going to do whatever it happens to be. You need to think of a small consequence which you can deliver without their permission. Now, that's the behaviour side of things, and it may just simply be that. The other issue could be a bit further down, which is that your partner may not agree with the condescending remarks, but somebody else might be. And it doesn't really matter who that person is, but it needs to be addressed. So maybe their other parent is agreeing with them that you, the step parent, shouldn't be respected or acknowledged or treated nicely. And behind the scenes, this person is condoning their behaviour. Now, you need to be able to spot who that might be. It might be the other parent, but often it isn't. Often it's maybe another relative who doesn't agree with your relationship with your new partner. It may be an uncle and aunt, it may be a grandparent, it may be, it can be anybody who is not fully on board with the new current arrangements and does diss the relationship, and so the child feels they can diss it to you. It could even be a friend of theirs or somebody else, a neighbour. It's often when you are living in a step family, people can say, oh, you're going to stay with your stepmom this weekend. And the assumption is that all step parents are negative. So it's like, is that difficult? Do you get on with her? And it sort of encourages you as the stepchild to think, oh, maybe I don't have to get on with her. And then they get support that way from just the general thinking about how step families are. So if your stepchild is being a bit, you're thinking that he or she is being given permission from somebody else, it's important you establish that and chat to them about it and counter it and say, that's not acceptable. Life has to move on. This is the situation at the moment, and would very much like you to welcome you into this house, but you need to show respect for the people in it. Then there's another strand down, which is the third final strand, which is that when you are a stepchild, it is difficult to accept a step-parent into your life, especially if you're not ready. If your parents have separated and you didn't want them to, then the thing that you don't want to happen is that a new step parent comes into the relationship. And this can mean that you, the stepchild, are having to deal with lots of things that are assumptions. The assumption is that the new step-parent coming into the household will take over parent responsibilities while you, the child, are in the house. But you might bitterly resent that. You may still want your parents to be together, or if one of your parents has died, then you're desperately missing that parent who has died and you just didn't want it to happen and you can't accept it. You're just in denial. And if you have those strong feelings of bereavement, grief and loss, then accepting a new step-parent can be extremely difficult. So as a stepchild in that situation, often nobody says anything to you. Nobody says, I'm your father's new partner or I'm your mother's new partner, but I am not going to try and take your parents' position. There are some things that I might need to work with you on, and I want to work with you on it. But that it might sound like I'm telling you what to do, but the household has to run. But I want to share with you that I'm not this and I'm not that, and I'm not going to try and take over, and I'm not going to commandeer your relationship with your parent. And if none of that is said in a step family when you're the child and you are old enough to know what's going on, you can become bitter and resentful and quite on strike about agreeing to anything and going along with anything or liking anybody. And at any opportunity, you will be difficult and rude or poke fun or whatever it happens to be at whoever you can, and that's often the step-parent. Often it can be about, so the lowest strand is often about not really being in the denial stage of grief and being unable to move on. And it doesn't really matter how reasonable people are, you feel bitterly unhappy and don't care that you're rude or upset people, or in fact the more upset you can make people, the more you're hoping that somebody will turn around and show you understanding and say, what is the problem? If you're suffering from grief and stuff, let's help you with that. Even the acknowledgement can help you move on. But this kind of abandonment and kind of like rushing off to a new relationship when the child's not ready can often bring about very, very difficult behaviour from the child. So there you have it. You have the lowest level, the strata whereby you're dealing with the loss and the grief of what's gone on before and the child's struggling with that. The second layer is about the extended family or other people agreeing with your objectionable behaviour towards your step-parent, because after all, aren't all step-parents awful? And then the top thing is there's nothing that's going on like that underneath, but actually they're just getting away with it because they can. And I ask you, therefore, what consequences are there for that behaviour in order for that child to change their behaviour? We will always, our behaviour is very controlled by what we're rewarded for doing. And therefore, a small amount of consequences and rewards, if behaviour improves, is well worth doing. We run workshops, sessions, an email response service, and we write booklets. You can find links to our social media and website in the description box below.